This episode of the Rainbow Brainskull Hour podcast is brought to you by water. If you go to the sink and put a glass under it and turn it on, you can get a glass of water. My guest today is the amazing Giulia Rozzi. Hit it! Welcome to the Rainbow Brainskull Hour. You're gonna have a good real time today. Every week there's a new guest so that you'll learn something new. 'Cause that's all that we're here to do. I never stop anybody that wants to say
compliment you.
Yeah, wants to say nice things. I keep them going, and I always say more. I always say go on. I always say sounds right to me.
Yeah, those are all great things.
Because I don't believe it completely. I don't internalize it completely. You should put these on and check how you're sounding. You're a professional, so I don't need to walk you through this. I don't need to walk you through the fact that we might just start going into it at any moment.
Does your podcast have a theme?
It does. The theme is creativity, motivation, and death. Because everyone dies and everyone has their own thoughts of what's going to happen after you die. A lot of people cling to of course it's nothing. And a lot of people cling to, well, of course I'm going to reincarnate. Of course I'm going to. So I just find it really interesting. And creativity, because it's where the universe just does it naturally, and we just naturally do it, but we have a force within us that's trying to stop us from doing it. It gets beaten out of you as a kid. Like, you're taught to kind of be not create. You're taught to be a factory worker, basically.
Yeah.
And motivation is, how do you get that creativity out of you? Because I know that there's so much stuff we all want to be doing, but we can't do it because there's not enough time in the day. There's not enough money in your cash flow oftentimes. Maybe a couple of us have it figured out, but for the most part, people I'm talking to are not rolling in it. They're doing all right.
How dare you?
But have I talked to anyone that's been rolling in it yet? I've got some booked up, but they keep canceling on me, which is maybe why.
They keep tripping over all their piles of money.
Yeah. So what's something... Do you sound okay to yourself?
Yeah, I think... Do I sound echoey or fine?
You might sound echoey, but that gets fixed in post. A lot of people complain about it, but you'll acclimate. It's like we're speaking in a cave.
Yes.
Because we kind of are.
Yeah. Cool. So where do we start?
Where do we start? We probably either start 15 seconds ago or we start now. Giulia Rozzi is here with me right now.
Hi.
Co-host of Hopefully We Don't Break Up podcast. That's your only podcast, right?
I just finished. I was co-hosting WeTV's official Breadzilla's podcast.
Isn't Oprah, right?
Oprah's is. Wait, is Oprah's We? No, Oprah's
no, hers is O. Yeah, I should know that. We is just, I'm thinking of Oxygen, which isn't even Oprah. I'm not checking Twitter. I'm starting a timer so I make sure that we're here the right amount of time.
So I think we did 8 episodes, but Hopefully We Don't Break Up is my only podcast, and then I might be starting a solo.
It's a good podcast. I haven't listened to all of it, but I like to do research before. I mean, we've known each other for... I don't know how long. You're one of those people that I don't remember when I met you, whether it was Austin or just what year. I could pin it to maybe 2010, between 2014,
within
something
the last
like
5 to 10 years.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And the theme I've noticed, and knowing you're an empath, you have a theme of feelings, relationships, bad bride, that kind of thing. So relationships obviously fascinate you, or it's like where your mind is a lot.
Did I tell you I'm an empath?
Yeah.
When did we talk about this?
I think just walking on the street sometime.
It's just like where I just screamed at you. I was like, hey, I'm an empath.
Across the street, I'm an empath.
I just started to understand what that meant, because for a while I thought I was depressed. And then there's this woman, Dr. Judith Orloff. She's like a writer and a psychologist, and she does a lot of work in being an empath. And I listened to a book of hers called...
That counts.
Yeah. called Positive Energy. And then she has another book called The Empath Survival Guide. And first of all, I hate labels. Like I understand the need for them, But I personally try to not be like, because I in the past have been like, I'm codependent, I'm insecure, but it's like, well, I'm sometimes those things, you know?
Yeah, you make a little prison for yourself if you cling to the label, but the label itself isn't bad.
Right, the label's not bad. And I said depressed for a while because it kind of fit. I checked all the boxes and I felt like I couldn't get out of my own way. And then when I learned about being an empath, it made sense, like absorbing other people's feelings and being extra sensitive. And like my vibe meter when I'm in like, you know, a pretty self-aware place, like when I'm meditating a lot, like my awareness is really high. And so I'll get like good vibes and bad vibes for people. I like fall apart when I watch the news. I mean, I know I assume most people are like this, but then
no, I don't think so.
I know I'm now learning that a lot of people don't like, and it's not in a mean way. Because, for example, my boyfriend, who's very kind and empathetic,
Will Miles, on
yes.
the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, yes, on my podcast or your podcast?
No, his.
Oh,
I mean
okay.
yours. I just patriarchied it. It's like, you know, his like handmade style.
Yes, under his eye, under Will's eye. But he's really good about kind of like shutting it off.
He's an empath too, kind of?
No, he has empathy, but he doesn't get buried. Like, he can watch the news and then turn it off and like be like, well, I'm going to focus on being successful because then that's how I'll help, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I'll sometimes fall into a hole of, like, last week I watched, you know, the video of the cop choking that prom student. Like over and over.
Prom student?
Yeah, did you see that?
No, I've kind of, I don't know the most recent one. I know that it's still going on.
I mean, how do you keep up? I don't think he was a student. He took his cousin to prom or something like that. But I like couldn't function like the rest of the day. And I don't mean to say that like I'm such a, but like I get very easily devastated and disappointed. And again, I thought for a while it was depression, but it's actually empath makes more sense because it's like being super highly affected by the world around you, which I think is a positive thing because I hope it makes my art relatable and feeling based. And I think it's also what makes me relate to a lot of people that are different than me because I try to have that understanding. But as a person, I've had to learn like boundaries, and it's okay to give myself a break and self-care. And so it was weird because ever since I learned that word, I don't feel depressed anymore.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
you unlocked it.
I did, and it just made more sense because there are people, because when I would talk to someone who like truly seemed to, I've had moments of depression, but when I've talked to someone who seems to clinically resonate with the clinical definition of depression, I didn't fully fully connect with what their diagnosis was. So I didn't want to falsely diagnose myself when that. And I also
do you remember what the diagnosis is of a normally depressed person? Because I've never gone and gotten it checked out before. I'm finally getting to that stage where I will go talk to someone.
Okay.
I'm not that type of person anymore that's like, no, I don't need to go see a therapist. No, I'll go see anybody. I'll go see a channeler. I'll go see a tarot person. I'll go see anything. I'm not one way or another. I'm not stubborn about it. But what was it that didn't match up with you?
Well, I have a talk show that I do.
Feelings.
Feelings, a talk show with Giulia Rozzi that I do in New York every 4 months right now because I'm not living there, and I'll probably bring it to LA at some point. And it's a talk show which every show has a feelings theme. So it's like a variety show, like a late night talk show.
Not to interrupt, but why isn't it here yet?
Just because I just moved here, and also my sister is my sidekick.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
And she's in Boston, and it's a little harder for her to fly out. We'll make it work at some point.
Okay.
But production value is on the DIY right now. So a bus from Boston to New York is a lot more feasible than leaving her family and flying to LA.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it'll happen. Anywho, and she's a licensed therapist, and it's like really cool.
She has a real person job.
She's a real person job, but, you know, she's raised in the same environment as me, so her sense of humor and her,
that's cool.
Yeah, her like baseline for like, is this normal? Like is like mine. But anyways, I had Jacqueline Novak on the show.
Oh yeah, author of How to Weep Publicly.
Yes.
Is that what it's called?
How to Weep in Public.
She's an excellent comic.
Excellent.
I haven't seen her in like 5 years, but
she's so
I've
great.
watched her like creepily from a lot. We do that kind of like with comics that we meet along our path. Like you have them on social media, and you just kind of creepily look at. It's not creepy anymore because everyone's on social media, but we just know everything everyone's up to now, and it's kind of nice seeing people that you like, blossom and find out like their niche is too marketing of a word, but it's true. Like animals do it.
The brand.
I love brand. I love content. I love product. I'm not one of those people that I'm not even one of those people that really says one of those people.
I have mixed feelings about those words. But
brand and content.
Just gives me a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, it's from that angle, but you can look at it, I don't know, like Game of Thrones, like they have Lannister, the brand, the lion, the Starks have the wolf.
Never watched it.
So I'm not going to go completely into it, but it's medieval and stuff, and there's lots of death and sex, and it's just very real and raw. And when it's at its best isn't when people are fighting, it's when they're just having wine and talking shit. It's just so wise and everything, but it's the war of these houses, and it's kind of cool that each one is represented by an animal. Like one's like a house of wolves, the other one is lions, there's one that's a dragon, there's one that's just a flayed man. That's a weird one, but it's like the animal that is on their thing, while it's not completely centered about that, it's like a subtle thing. It's like they reflect that animal. And I mean, it's either you have your brand or you go work for Google or somewhere else. Like you have to have it if you're going to be in business.
I'm finding peace with it, and this is probably going to go a whole other direction. I just get a little overwhelmed by how infinite it is. Like when you hear about celebrities hiring social media managers so they can get more followers, and you're
it sucks.
And it's just because like there's an endless amount of likes, there's an endless amount of followers, there's an endless amount of clicks,
and we all feel unseen and we all feel unheard, even on our most successful days of getting attention on these little devices. It sucks.
It does, but I'm trying instead. I'm learning to, I don't know, figure out my relationship with it so that I feel at peace with it. So, anywho, Jacqueline Novak was on the show, and I can't remember her exact definition of it, but she has really gone in deep with it because she wrote this book, and she very openly, has her depression issues. And so when we were just discussing it, I'm really gonna, I don't want to even try to quote her because I'm gonna misquote it, but the way she was talking about her depression, I was like, oh, that's not me. Mine's a little, because like I've been on Zoloft off and on a few times over the past few years, and I recently went off about 6 months ago, and it's working for me because I've figured, and it was actually after I figured out the whole empath thing. It almost like lifted my depression, if that makes any sense.
Oh, completely.
Because I thought that I was weird. Like I was like, why isn't anyone like I would like sometimes cry after a stand-up show, not because I had a bad set, but because I could like feel the fakeness between two people, or I totally could see through someone who was on stage saying a bunch of shitty things, but I know they didn't really mean it. Like, I don't know, there's just sort of, I don't know.
Incongruence with reality, with what is presented, is like causing conflict within you. If that's too complicated a way of saying it, it's just that the outside clashes too much with, like, that person's lying, let's say, or... Well,
and also I think right now, and this does sort of feed into the whole content thing, is like, there's a lot of emphasis. There's always in comedy been a lot of like, get some, buck up, you're a comic, you can take a joke, So there's already that sometimes is a little harsh. I get it, and I can take a joke, and I can dish it. I'm not really like I'm not really into like roast battles, but I appreciate what they are.
Yeah.
But I do think it's almost gotten a little too far where now it's like non-comics and politicians and all these people being like, oh, we're gonna fucking cry, or you're gonna cry because people are dying. And it's this sort of like really mean-spirited, like, how dare you feel? Like, what are you, a fucking pussy? Like, that kind of talk has gotten so commonplace where I'm like... And so I think for a minute I was like, oh my God, I am a fucking butt. Like, and now, but I'm owning it again. And I'm like, yeah. And I want to encourage other people to own. I mean,
we have different levels of sensitivity, whether it's to sunlight or to emotion or whatever. And it's like, I don't know, you know how with sociopaths, they have the part of their brain, the amygdala, when it's small, like they have no empathy, and that's why they're so easy to kill people and everything. And have you thought that maybe you have a big amygdala, or it might not even be
I got a big old amygdala, so big.
The biggest, taking in all the feelings everywhere.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's kind of a cool thing. While it might cool, I use the word cool too much. I say it in wrong times. Like someone,
I say that too.
Yeah. But would you turn it off if you could? Because I think it makes you who you are. The fact that you can perceive this, let's say you have a sixth sense, you have an emotion at a distance.
I wouldn't turn it off, because everything you just said, I think it's why my strengths are my strengths. I'm just learning how to not compartmentalize it, but not get debilitated by it. Because then it's not useful. It's like, okay, I feel sensitive. I see there's an issue. How do I create art that addresses that issue? Or how do I approach this person with loving kindness and not like be just blurting out emotions and weep? You know what I mean? Like, so I'm just kind of trying to balance it. And I've found for me, really just like, whatever self-care means to you. Like I used to think self-care meant like getting manicures all the time. Like I was like, look at me, I'm doing self-care.
That's part of it. It's not all of it.
It is, but it was like, that's all I was doing. And now just between like meditating, putting my phone away while I go for a long walk, like not answering the phone sometimes for certain people, or even like family members when I just can't handle like learning that taking care of yourself, I used to think that meant you were selfish.
Yeah, that's a trap.
Yeah, and I think because I'm so sensitive, I didn't want people to get mad at me or think that I was an asshole. And I'm really, in my, I used to get so like frustrated with people if I felt like they weren't available to me. And now I'm starting to understand like, well, yeah, sometimes people weren't available to me.
Oh, you were on the opposite end of it. So you'd get mad if someone didn't text you back in 5 minutes or something.
Oh, yeah. And I still have a little bit of that paranoia where I'm like, it's very easy. Like, it's usually if the other night I had 4 glasses of wine, which I never do anymore. And I woke up the next morning, I was like, oh my God, I have to apologize to everyone. It's like nothing happened. Like
that feeling is real though. Even if you didn't say anything mean, like you feel vulnerable for having whether talked too much or been a different way and
because I wasn't fully there. Like 1 to 2 glasses of wine, I'm there. 4 glasses, I'm avoiding how uncomfortable I feel. So yeah.
So, what was I going to ask you? Oh, yeah. So you live with Will, right?
I do.
How long have you lived with him?
We've lived together for 3 years.
Does your empathy kind of, and you might talk about this on your podcast, it might be in another episode or something that I haven't listened to, but does it affect, like, let's say he's in a bad mood or something, not at you, but just we have days, like you have an angry day, a sad day or something. Does that seep into you much more than it normally would, where it's like, why are you angry? And then I might even be projecting here, because that's something I run into, where it's
like to absorb his feelings.
Yeah, like that's a problem with, it's not a huge problem, but with me, I find myself getting into the trap of, she's absorbing my feelings. I don't want her to absorb my feelings, but also we live in the same space together, so I can't put on the not feeling bad emotion for 12 hours. I have to be myself. My relationship with Will, it's obviously not without flaws, which if you listen, hopefully you don't break up, you'll hear all about them. But I think one of the things that's been really cool, your favorite word, is I don't think either of us really hide a lot of stuff. Like I think something he's done, we've really yin and yanged each other a lot, and that's a sexual position. We've really like balanced each other out, I think, in some ways, because he's kind of directly and indirectly kind of taught me the beauty of silence. I'm a chatty person. I tend to dominate conversations. I'm working on it. It's because I'm like feeling out loud, and he's sort of he's like a quiet listener, and that's how and so he really kind of processes his emotions before he speaks. And so I've learned to do a little bit of that, which has actually been really good as an empath, because I'm not asking everyone else if my feelings are normal. Yeah. I'm kind of like
really like I'm learning to like have a feeling, feel it, deal with it, on to the next, you know, like just kind of pulling back a little bit and having a little bit more personal space.
That's a mantra in one of the apps, meditation apps that I used to use, or still go back to every now and then. But it's the thing is, I allow my emotions to move through my body in a healthy way.
Ooh, I
and
love it.
just little things like that, like, oh yeah, you can't get rid of them; they're in you, but let them move around in there instead of having a TSA and stopping them in your head and letting a circus go on there and letting it stay in your gut, or like.
Immediately, I used to like immediately call someone the second I had an uncomfortable emotion and be like, oh, help me through this, instead of just like, it'll move, you know? And then I think the thing for Will that I have done is gotten him to talk more and gotten him to express his emotions more and admit, you know, feelings that might be uncomfortable. So it's been really, so I don't think there is a lot of room to absorb, because we kind of, I don't know, we've just sort of found a really nice balance of expression, but also respecting each other's personal space.
You say it with a little bit of question at the end.
No, well, I'm just, also because personal space is really new to us, because we used to live in a tiny apartment in New York 3 months ago.
Yeah, this must be a palace for you.
Oh my God, I'm like, am I going to cry in the yard and then the spare bedroom and the kitchen? Like, there's so many places to cry.
Yeah.
But,
New York is awesome, but I feel like after you're in your, unless you're just filthy rich or you're in your like early 20s or late teens or something, I think after you like get older, like you can't live like that anymore.
No,
or some people can. Some people are super New Yorkers, but I like space and palm trees and sunlight.
Yeah. Well, and talk about absorbing feelings. Like I never want to be a hater of New York. I'm glad I lived there. I have so many wonderful memories and experiences and lessons, but I lived in LA, I moved to New York, and then I moved back to LA. And I always knew I would end up back here. I just kind of, I know, part of why I moved to the East Coast, because I thought I had to, because my family's on the East Coast and can't live in this fantasy place forever. And work in television? Who do you think you are? You know, getting in the way of your creativity, as you mentioned earlier.
You know Brene Brown?
Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh, excellent. So are you familiar with Shame Drives Two tapes?
Hell yes.
You're not good enough, and who do you think you are? So it's both directions. You're either good enough, and it's both. It can get you at any angle.
Her, if you haven't talked about it yet, or if your listeners haven't seen
I've talked about things, I think 3 or 4 times.
Her animated, have you seen like her animated thing about shame? I think it's about shame. She got this really great, one of her talks. It's like animated. I think it's about shame, but it's so good. But the thing with New York was that that's where I really thought, I was like, I'm so depressed. But at times it was relationships that I was in that felt depressing when I was younger, because I was with people I thought I should be, or I thought would fix me, or I'd fix them, and blah, 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 blah. And then I really noticed New York wasn't great for me, because talk about a place where you can't avoid people. Like, part of protecting myself as a sensitive person is I actually need alone time. Like, I'll be at a party or a show, and all of a sudden I'm like, I gotta go. And it's not because anything bad happened. It's just too much energy, right? Yeah. And I used to think that meant like I had social anxiety. I'm like, no, it's a lot. And it's like loud people, and it's, you know, all that energy. Yeah.
Not anxiety, but just, I don't want to be here. I'd rather it be quieter. Going to the bathroom and looking at your phone is the best part of being in a bar.
Yeah, yeah. But in New York, and at least in LA, it's like I go do a show. It's very acceptable, I feel like, here to go home after your set, because everyone has to be up early for something, whether it's a job or just jogging or like whatever. And you get to leave the show and get into a car. And in New York, it was like you leave a show, and then there's like a bunch of people hanging out at the bar, and then you have to get on the subway, and then you have to be around more people, and then you have to walk past a bunch of people, like, to actually get, and then you're in this tiny apartment with another person. And so to actually just have space was such a challenge. And I personally, not everyone needs this, but I need like a wide open field, like a yard, just like a little every now and then a few moments where I see no one else. Right.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to find that in New York. And I didn't think, I was like, oh, Julia, you're just complaining. Come on, it's cool. This is the struggle, you know? And then I was like, no. And it lined up really well that I moved here because I was thinking about it, and then it worked out, and it was right as I was kind of like figuring out what I needed for my own mental health. And one of those things was like just space.
Space is the best. Do you ever go to Joshua Tree or
We
Ojai
just went last weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's something that even compared to New York, here has the open space thing. The going to the desert where you actually see stars, which, I don't know, if you're listening to this and you're not in some major city and you just see stars every night and you take it for granted, then good for you. But we don't get to see stars very much. And here's also the opposite of New York in that it's a weirdly isolating where there is a lot of people around, but we get into these ruts of leaving shows early to go work on something, and then years go by. It's like, oh, I've just only been working on stuff, and I haven't actually been
in a city. You mean?
Yeah.
Well, also, there was that, and then the speed. Like, don't get me wrong, it's been a little frustrating here because I don't know if the drivers here are just selfish.
Lyft or what?
No, like
Uber?
like literally drivers in
everyone.
the street. Yeah, like they'll sit at a green light forever, and you're like, okay, this is a little too. I get that you're chill, but like, come on. But the opposite of that was in New York. I was always in a hurry, and I always looked really busy. I always had my laptop and a notebook, and I was running somewhere, and then I was typing really fast, and I was like multitasking. But
It sounds stressful just hearing about it.
Yeah, but I didn't feel like I was completing a lot of things. I just looked like I was always at a coffee shop like, look at me typing, you know? And but I don't know what it was, but there was like this speed in me. And and again, I might also just be getting older. Like I can never pinpoint the thing that's working because it's like a bunch of things at once. But
working meaning the thing that's doing that behavior?
No, sorry, I meant
helping.
The thing that's been helping. Again, I don't know if it's partially moving to LA, getting older, the meditating, the going off medication, the accepting who I am.
They're all probably little income streams to your mental health.
100%. And I've just been moving slower and doing less, but completing more. And it's been like my mind is blown. I'm like, why didn't I know about this like 10, 15, 20 years? Like, what's the secret that no one told me about? It's like, oh, being in the moment? Whoa. You know, like I took a meditation class in college. I've been going to yoga for 20 years or whatever. But like,
damn, 20 years? Really?
Yeah. Like off and on. But it wasn't until about a year and a half ago that for 20 years, no, 17 years probably, I've threatened to meditate every day. You know, I've been like, oh, this is going to be the year. It's like when you're like thinking of going on a diet, you're like, this is the year. And then you do it for a couple of days and then you stop. And then about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, maybe, I had like my last kind of major depression bout. And that's when I was like, I have to meditate every single day, even if it's for a minute.
You ever hear the saying, if you have time, meditate for 10 minutes a day. If you don't have time, meditate for an hour a day.
Yes.
And it's the most fun thing. That and also writing, like the whole thing with writer's block. There's no such thing really as writer's block because there's no such thing as talker's block because we always have something to say. And when we have writer's block, it's often when you're not in front of that page. It's when you're doing something else. And it's like, I need to sit down to write. I haven't been able to sit down to write. But when you're actually there facing the page, it's the easiest thing in the whole world to do.
Did you hear that from
Seth Godin? Probably.
Yes. Yeah.
Wait, which one? Which line? Writer's block?
The writer's block thing.
I love both sides of self-help. I love the success business side of self-help, and I love the emotional, spiritual, whatever.
I like when they combine.
Yeah, both of them. Like, what's her name? Jen Sincero. You are a badass at making money. That's
I read her. You are a badass regular.
The money one is so good because
really?
I don't know, just the way she speaks, and she's integrated all the business and spiritual self-help books into one thing, and just I think that's what we like about any writer is when they write like they talk, and and it's something that hasn't hit you in that receptor yet, because you like have a motivational quote or something, you pin it on your fridge, and then it becomes part of the fridge. It doesn't have that juice anymore to you, and you can do that ad infinitum. It's like bananas. They're good now, but they're going to be bad in a few days, not to other people because they haven't seen it before, but that's why I'm constantly taking in new, like, ooh, I haven't thought of it like that. Ooh, that's a new way of looking at it. Ooh, I'll do it like this. It's very important to say ooh before you read it. Just go ooh.
I feel like I always mention the same people in podcasts, but do you know Tara Brach?
Tara Brach?
Yeah.
Sounds like a Star Trek character.
She's a Buddhist meditation teacher, but she's also a psychologist. And she has a free podcast with free meditations and lectures. And what I love about her is she really blends science and spirituality. And I love...
Are there not free podcasts?
Oh, I guess there are, but there's like
there's a couple of Patreon ones, or not a couple, but yeah, go on. I just saw a little angle there. I had to jump in.
Yeah, of course. And then I just started to, I was going to say reread, but I'm audio listening to it. Marianne Williamson.
Don't know that one.
Oh, okay. So Marianne Williamson, she's like the reason why Oprah credits her a lot to why Oprah is so spiritual.
Oh,
and whatnot.
damn.
Mm-hmm. And she was on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday podcast recently, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot how much I love this woman. She has this quote that's often credited to Nelson Mandela for some reason, but it's actually hers about like, it's like it's your light that you're afraid of. Like we're afraid to shine because we feel like it's going to make other people feel small. But actually...
Who do you think you are?
Yeah, it's that, who do you think you are? And so she has this book
But it's
called,
another way of looking at it. So it has that effect. What's the book called?
Return to Love. And the audiobook's only like 2.5 hours. And I just started listening to it. I read it maybe 16, 17 years ago. And it's really cool to go back and read things you read that long ago. Because I think about, let's see what year... it was about 15, 16 years ago that I felt, it was right when I graduated college. I felt very clear, confident, beginner's luck, fearless.
Were you doing stand-up then?
That was when, by accident. That was, I had come to LA to visit a friend who was a waitress at the Comedy Store, and I had like tried stand-up a couple times, but like had no intention of...
That building probably makes your meter go off the charts with crazy emotions, doesn't it?
What?
Just the Comedy Store. It's got the most like dark vibes.
Well, it's where I started.
Yeah.
So I went to go visit I was visiting my friend in LA. I was supposed to start graduate school in Boston in the fall to do expressive arts therapy, even though I wanted to work in television. Like I've always wanted to work in sitcoms. I was like a kid that totally grew up on like, watching reruns of Three's Company and all those, Jeffersons, and I love Norman Lear and all that stuff. And so I did open mic at the Comedy Store, and I ended up getting passed by Mitzi.
Hell yeah.
At the open mic. Like I wasn't even auditioning.
You got passed on your first open mic, and Seinfeld got a no? That's so funny.
But here's
your name's on the building and his isn't.
But here's the funny thing, though. Here's the thing about that. I was just listening to Marianne Williamson talk about beginner's or dumb luck, right? And so I was here for a couple years, and whatever that thing was that I had when I walked into the Comedy Store that first night really started to fade after a year because I started to learn what to be afraid of. And Marianne Williamson talks about like dumb luck is because you don't yet know what you're supposed to be afraid of. You're just like, I was just there. I walked in, I was like, this is so cool. I just want to make people happy. Like I was just such a light. And then when I started to learn about like, and this is before social media, I think like Friendster maybe, like, you know what I mean? It was like a while ago. MySpace was just starting. So there wasn't even that yet. It was just like human competition. And I fell hard. I also had like no life plan. I just was like, and I was in a relationship I don't think was right. Like, like all the things, right?
Is that the Bad Bride one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can look that up, listeners. You've got into that before.
Yeah. Like that, and he's a wonderful person. It just wasn't right at the time. And then I was here for a few years, and then for about, I I'd say 7 or 8 years after that, I felt like I was underwater. That's when I got married because I thought I should. This is all the things you were saying earlier about we're raised to be factory workers and not like, here I was given this gift, this like, you should go for it. And this woman, this legend saw something in me and I agreed with her at the time. I was like, I am great, right? And then I got scared and I got my sensitivity, you know, I didn't know how to handle it yet. And so I'm absorbing and I'm seeking validation from everyone. And I'm like, you know, auditioning at Groundlings. And the second I get a bad note, I quit because I'm like, that hurts, you know? And like, I just didn't know, right? I just didn't think, I was like, this is not what you're supposed to do. I have to go be normal at some point, right? So I moved back to the East Coast. I get married and divorced. I get into a not a great
How long before you got divorced?
A year.
Year.
But we were together 8 years. But I got married because I was like, I'm supposed to like...
Yeah, it's the next step. I need to do this to be... Yeah.
I had nothing else in my life that was solid. And I'm like, well, you threw away your career and you got this guy and he's cool.
You know Zach Sherwin, of course, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so Zach was telling me about this book that I don't remember the name of it or the person that wrote it or anything, but he was going through a difficult time, or I guess still is right now, is transitioning in a relationship sort of situation. And it talked about when you're going through that and you see just pure chaos, like know that that's truth, that's what's actually happening. And when you have solid, like that's an illusion. So when you're looking for something solid, there's no such thing as something solid. So it's like when it's going chaos, it's like, that's okay. You're just seeing the truth and you'll fall back into the illusion of it being solid again. But just, I don't know, we could die at any moment, or like things can change. Like I've had friends or one friend in particular that had a brain tumor thing that come out of nowhere, no family history thing, and then is dead within a year. So just the whole thing of like, now I'm solid. Now I have the marriage, I have the house and the thing. Like you never know what the thing is. And that doesn't mean just go max out all your credit cards and go do whatever you want right now, because then you'll make more chaos. But don't be afraid of chaos when you're seeing it swirling
and also
around there.
In the chaos is when you find answers, if you just kind of let some of it happen. Because like I kept looking, I think I just kept looking for someone to fix me. And then it was almost like I went to like conversion therapy for comedy, because like I moved to New York. I was kind of doing a little bit of comedy, but not that much. And then I was like, you know what? Let's get married. Let's move to the suburbs of Boston. I'm going to quit comedy. And like my friends were like, what are you talking about? Like I just was in such denial of my true spirit. And I think it's like a fear of I could be good. I could be happy. Like, what? Like, I come from Italian immigrants where like suffering's like their thing. You know what I mean? Like my friend, I don't know if she quoted someone else, but there's this great quote my friend says about in Italian families, you're only as happy as your most depressed family member.
I've never heard that, but I like it.
Like there's just like a lot of like martyr kind of energy.
There should be a Coco for Italian people. I mean, there should be for everything, but it's cool like seeing different cultures, like even if it's made up, like in Black Panther or something, like there's no Wakanda. It's cool to go see that little world or something. Or in Coco, seeing that family dynamic where being not Mexican myself, like I don't know that whole thing just from far away, and I kind of know what it is, but seeing...
I just wrote a pilot.
About Coco?
No, about
Italian things?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What is it 3D? Is it live action? Is it animated?
It's live action about me, teenager me. Loosely based off teenager me, very much based off
Giulia with a J.
I changed my name. Giulia with a J, yeah. But anyways, long story long, basically, I went through this really, it was like almost like 10 years of like complete, like, should I do this? Should I do that? Should like just whatever. And then when I got out of that second relationship, I like committed to a year of, I talk about this in the podcast a lot too. I had this like year of, I mean, singlehood, but I was like hooking, like I was having a lot of
living it up.
I was living it up, making up for lost time. But I that's when I was like, oh my God, feel feelings and don't run. Because I was in back-to-back relationships, I always had a partner that would be like, I'll take you to dinner, stop crying, like.
Yeah, men especially are afraid of the tears and will do and say anything to make the tears stop, even if it's based on lies.
Yeah.
And it's the journey of now. It's for men right now, I think that's the transformation of now. Like hundreds of years ago, we killed people with swords and stormed the beaches of Normandy and all that kind of thing. And now it's an internal emotional battle. Can you be honest with your feelings? Can you articulate your feelings? Can you take criticism? Can you embrace the feminine within you and keep the masculine, or however much of it you want?
Yeah.
And like such as what Prince showed us how to do here.
That's Della Luna Designs.
Who's Della Luna?
Della Luna, did you buy that for yourself?
No, Catherine got this for me. I'm holding a mug of coffee with Prince from the, I guess, Raspberry Beret period.
Yep. There's a store called Kaleidoscope Collective in Echo Park, and this woman, Della Luna Designs, makes those mugs.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
See, I just owned this. I don't say it lots, but when some of my stuff gets jacked, like posted on social media where my name is cropped out and they just post it as their own thing. Yeah, but it's 2018 and Donald Trump's been president for over a year. It's well into the craziness of everything. I'm not going to go complain about a thing like that, but and then I'm doing it myself. Like, I don't know who made it. It's just it's my favorite mug. I don't care who made it.
Well, because it could have been a mass-produced like Target mug too. Not that there's anything wrong with Target, but what's been really interesting was that I feel like you just said that thing about like the chaos never ends, right? So I used to have the habit of being like, and last year was the year I figured it out. And so I was about to say the last 4 or 5 years have been like this what feels like accelerated growth. Like a lot of things that I maybe avoided or didn't get to learn because I buried myself in relationships and the shoulds and all that stuff. And I just got like, it's never ending. You know what I mean? Like I'm not done, but I do feel like there's been a real significant growth in the last 5 years. And so my mind is a little blown that I knew I wanted to move back to LA during all of this. And then my boyfriend and I ended up back here. We were coming here to visit. I didn't get a ticket back. I had a weird feeling we weren't leaving. He ended up getting a gig, so he stayed. Because I would have moved without a gig. He wouldn't have. He's a man. I don't know if that's what it is, but there was a lot of like, and then I just like performed at the Comedy Store again, and I was like very humble going back there because when I was there the first time, it wasn't that I wasn't humble. I just didn't. I was like, well, this lady said I'm great, so I guess I'm great, and that probably annoyed some door guys, and
first timer.
Yeah, it was. I if I was obnoxious, I didn't mean to be. I just was clueless, and so it was really cool because I'm like back home and I'm interested to. And then it was really weird because Mitzi just passed away less than a month ago.
Did you know her well other than that initial interaction?
There was that initial interaction, and then my interactions with her after that were always through I would relay. There would be like messages relayed through
to like Duncan Trussell or something, or whoever was working there at that time.
Yeah, and I this is how clueless I was, but again, it was probably who I really am. I went to Michael's Gifts and I bought like a jewelry box. I was like painting jewelry boxes for people for their Christmas presents that year when I was in LA the first year. And I made one for Mitzi and wrote like, thank you, and like bedazzled it. And I gave it to one of the door guys to give to her for Christmas. And I have I have no idea, but like, that's who I am, right? Like, it was like a dorky, I'm not even going to say dorky. It was like a sentimental message because I was like, thank you so much for hiring me, And then there was like 10 years where I was like, you idiot. Why would you ever give someone a jewelry box, And now I'm back and I'm like, fuck yeah. I make stupid, childish looking jewelry boxes for, like it's just very, I'm still in it, but there's something very cosmic going on where it's like, I think I'm back because I feel kind of back to that young, early 20s girl that like I know things now.
It's both. You get to keep both.
But I'm trying to reconnect with a little bit, I don't want to say the dumb luck, but that part of me that was more, I was fearless because I didn't know any better. And now I feel like I'm trying to regain that fearlessness with the knowledge.
That's good. Isn't it cool that we are a little dumb though? Like when you were saying you go back and read a book that you'd read before and you forgot certain parts of it, or you go watch a movie or listen to a song or something. If we kept everything in our head and knew all of it at all times, then once you consumed something, it'd be done. It's integrated, and then we would just be the Borg or something, just constantly taking things, assimilating it, and the being dumb luck type of thing, being stupid is also good. If not too stupid, but if we were aware of everything that our body was doing at every single moment, it'd be a hell world to just be completely aware of everything. I don't know if I'm articulating it right, but
the awareness, because there's so much information available to us right now, I feel like I wish I knew a little less, because that's...
You mean of the news and stuff?
Yeah, like it's just...
But you can.
Yeah, and I know I can, and I'm trying to, and that's where I'm trying to figure out those boundaries. But it's been really cool because, like, for example, that Marianne Williamson book was a book I read when I lived in LA 15, whatever years ago it was, right? And that book popped back into... And all these books have been popping back into my life that were part of my life back then. There's like...
Do you experience a lot of synchronicities?
Oh, yeah. Again, especially lately. I mean, I think everyone does, but I do believe in energy exchange. And I know you were saying like you're open to seeing whoever. When I just left New York, the last 6 months I was there, because I've been going to therapy, I don't know, 8 years or so. And then my therapist moved, and I was like, kind of glad in a way, because I sort of felt like I was done. I felt like I was like talking about the same thing over and over again. I do think therapy is wonderful, but I think it's also good to take breaks, because it's sort of what you were saying about the spiritual books and the self-help books.
Yeah,
like,
maybe they're not collecting. Maybe they're a connecting flight. Like that person got you to halfway where you need to be, and then you need another plane to take you. And they're not a bad plane. It's just that plane's got to go help other people.
100%. So I was like kind of done with that flight, but I knew that there's always going to be stuff to like recalibrate and heal and da-da-da-da. And so then my friend was like, oh, you should go see this woman, Joyce. And Joyce, she's like not on Yelp. She doesn't have a website. It's like word of mouth, and I guess she's an energy healer. I don't know what she calls herself. I should probably ask. Basically, you go and I'd like talk for maybe 20-ish minutes, and then there'd be one thing that she would be like, okay, let's go back. So you said you think people are always mad at you. Let's close your eyes, and like then she'd kind of make you in a meditative state, and you'd go back to some like real specific moment that you didn't even think was that significant. And then once you kind of got it, you'd lay on this table, and I called it Reiki one time, and she was like, no, Reiki, I went to school for 4 years.
What's Reiki?
Reiki's like moving energy in your body, but I guess what she does is more than that. I don't really know, but all I know is I would have visions. I would physically feel different. And it was as if I had just done like 5 days worth of like yoga and meditation.
Damn.
But in this thing. And I went to her maybe like 6 times. And it was, again, I don't know if all this stuff is because I went off the vacation, I went to LA, and then her, and then it's just like it's all been magnetizing in this beautiful cocktail of like, okay, I know I'm not done.
Yeah.
But like,
you want it to be one thing. Like part of your mind wants it to just be that. So then if you fall back down, you know that you can just go do that one thing again, right?
Well, also that's why I never want to like on a podcast or when I'm talking to someone, I try to never be like, you know what, like if someone's like complaining, you know what you need to do? You need to do this because this worked for me, because I can't quite put my finger on it. Like maybe I would have gone to see this energy healer, but if I had a really shitty relationship, maybe it wouldn't have lined up as well. And you know, my relationship with my parents is really good right now, where I like look at them as people and not parents. And maybe if I didn't do that, then the synchronicity about LA wouldn't have worked. Like, I don't know what the stuff is, but it all feels really nice. But there's also that little part of me that's like, when's it all going to come crashing down? Like, I still have shit, but my coping skills are much better, and my awareness and I'm just much more present. And I really hope this presence and this gratitude lasts, because
if it crashes down, it'll be,
then I'll kill myself.
Maybe. But what do you think happens after you die?
Oh, that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, don't kill yourself too.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Don't worry about it. It's so
Isn't
funny.
that funny when people like have to take it a little bit more seriously when someone even jokes about it? I joke about it, I think, every single episode or something, but I won't actually do it.
I mean, I've thought about it, but I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I haven't gone and bought rope or anything like that.
No, but I've definitely, like, when I've been in a really dark place, been like, okay, if nothing else works, like, that might have, like, when you feel so fucking awful, you know? But I obviously didn't do it. So it was really interesting because my mom had a brother that passed away recently, and it's really cool because my mom, you know, Italian immigrant, you know, my dad's her first everything, first boy, you know, like sheltered Catholic, all that stuff. And she used to be so kind of like, well, this is what the Bible's, but not in that, I don't know.
Not judgmental.
No, like Italian Catholicism for me has always felt more cultural rather than like, you must believe. It's more like, I don't know, this book said it, so that's what we do. You know, like
it's more family than shame, right?
Yeah. And so she's always been like, well, you go to heaven or you go to hell. Like, that's what it is. And it's been really cool to kind of see her in her own way, like, evolve and be like, no, you really think there's a heaven? What do you think? And like, she's like been asking me lately, and you know, I've been like talking to her about reincarnation, and we've been like exploring that. And so what do I think happens? Well, I know that I think that spirits and angels, we're all made of energy, right?
Yeah.
And I have at times felt the energy of people that have passed. My grandmother, my mom's mom, definitely. I've felt her presence when it was a situation where she would, I don't know, there's like a thing she said to me one time, and then so I don't know if that's a memory or if she's really there. I don't know, Mitzi, there's an energy about her that I felt.
And it doesn't
lately.
sound crazy because that's what we're about. So
yeah,
go full in, lean into it.
There's energy of, if people are energy, if we're made of energy, then that energy, I think, goes somewhere when your container.
Yeah, matter or energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Right.
It's all one thing doing a dance.
When I think about this stuff deeply, I kind of feel like I'm starting to trip, and then I start touching the table. I'm like, am I here? Like, it's, so what do I really haven't answered your question. I
mean, it's a flawed question. It's just, it's more of an exercise to get someone to kind of, say a little rap or something. But the question is flawed because what do you think happens after you die? And thinking is something that a living person does. And it's like, in the yogic terms, like they have 5 different words for mind, or maybe more than that. I need to look it up. The same way that Eskimos have a bunch of different words for snow. Like they have the manas, the chitti, the bodhisattva, the whatever the other one's called. But there's one that just cuts things in half, looks at the component parts and how those component parts relate to each other. So if you're just always thinking, and then how does this get cut in half and then make into the other thing, then you could just do that forever. There's no end to it.
I guess I would like to believe, or what I have been believing lately, is your body perishes, but your energy, your spirit, your soul, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, I do sort of believe it goes up, but the sky is infinite. So whenever people have talked about heaven, I'm like, well, where is it? You know? And I I guess I kind of believe a little bit in like the karma reincarnation, but I don't know that it's so black and white and that like you die and now you're a bird. You die and now you're this guy with a mustache. Like, I don't know if that's exactly how it works.
It's just those two. You're just a bird and then you're a mustache guy and then it's nothing.
Or you're just the mustache.
What if I started as a mustache guy? Then you just go to the end. You don't get to be a bird.
What about a mustache lady like I was in middle school? What's that? What happened? Yeah, I guess I believe in reincarnation-ish, but I don't know that you fully come back into that. Like maybe your energy and your husband's energy or your enemy's energy or your daughter's energy meld into something.
That's a weird foursome. You and your
enemies?
You and your enemy and your daughter.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe your daughter's your enemy. I mean, I have no idea, but maybe there's some melding of energies that give the next reincarnation of you a better understanding. Because, right, like that's one of the biggest problems in the world is people don't understand people that are different than them. Yeah. So maybe if you hit a certain level, God, I've never thought of this before, but maybe if you hit a certain level of enlightenment or empathy or understanding in this lifetime, you're then prepared in your next lifetime to have some of those flaws that you're opposed to in this lifetime. So then you can be a conduit for people that are different.
I like that.
I literally was just like, are we still here?
We still are. We still have work to do. Are
you a real person?
I don't know that. I know I'm more... I think I'm real, but I don't know. Yeah. I could just be a really good program.
But your art, I feel like really hits what I really like about your drawings, paintings, drawings.
Sure.
Okay. is I think you're very economical with your words.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, economy of words. That's something I use a lot.
Yeah, and I admire that because I definitely talked most of the time.
But you don't have a not economy of words in that you don't repeat yourself. It's one like thought, like or not one thought, but there's people that there's public speakers that are bad at public speaking, and they're like Martin Luther King on that day realized that he could. It's like just say the sentence. Don't.
Or they were saying Martin Luther King was a bad speaker.
No. Sometimes I go into bad things. I'm talking about someone. I'm using an example of someone speaking about, let's say, Martin Luther King.
I bet if we were to talk to like a communications expert, there's probably something psychological about that type of speech. Because think about it, like politicians talk like that a lot, and there's sort of almost an authority of like, if I repeat certain words over and over again, it makes me sound smarter than I am. Because I had to work, and I still sometimes have the flaw of saying a lot on stage.
I do it too, talking. I think. Do you think that's because we're afraid of someone interrupting us and talking over us? And if we say it's like I'm still speaking, but if we didn't have then you leave a little pocket and people want to jump into that pocket and say something. That's my theory.
That could be part of it. I also think it's to let people know I realize what I said might not be making sense, so I'm just by the I'm letting you know I'm thinking. Whereas I actually had a comic say to me, it was very kind, 8 years ago, say, I like your stand-up a lot, but you say and like so much that it makes you seem less intelligent than you are. And then I went back and watched a bunch of tapes and was horrified. I know! And I was horrified. And it's because silence, if your brain works fast and you want to make the silence can be a little uncomfortable. Doing my solo show is actually when I really learned to be comfortable with silence, because there was moments that weren't funny.
Oh, that's the best time to go into this, because we're we've still got time, but we do 10 seconds of silence on every episode.
Okay.
And my goal is or it's not even a goal, but one day I'm going to string them all together. And have all the guests, like have an hour of silence with different guests, and then you feel the silence within the room. But you get it. So are you ready? And we're going to start now. Oh, yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah. Whew.
And sorry to interrupt you there, but when you said silence, I was like, oh, no, we didn't do the silence of the episode, and it's going to be over. And it's at a different part of the episode every time. I keep it a surprise.
Nice.
It's fun to look at the waveform because I look at this like thing that does that, and then part of it just has a big dip down in it.
It's when the person had a breakdown.
Yeah, it's the little death of the thing, and then it reincarnates at the end. But back on that, I say this a lot on here, but I always say that awareness can't be aware of not being an awareness. So you're just you can't be aware of death. You're always going to just be a you. You can't not be a you. You're by definition a you. So when we're afraid of dying, it's like, no, then I won't be me anymore. But you are you. You can't not be a you. And life and death never meet. So it's you're here forever. You've got a long time to work through as many things as you need to work through to evolve to that higher dimension. But what were you saying about silence?
Oh my God. I don't know. Because what you just said, I want to write it down and reread it. Yeah. Isn't it? Well, I'm like in my late 30s.
Really?
Yeah.
Looking good.
Thank you. I used to not like talking about age because I'm a woman in entertainment and just a woman in general. And, it's like, oh, my ovaries and what have I done with my life? And I've at times felt like a little bit of a late bloomer to what I thought, what it seems like everyone else knows, which is like, your life is your own and be yourself. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm just, I feel like I really got it later, or I forgot it for a while. I knew it before. Anyways, that's when I just can't believe that, like, I could still be evolving in my 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s.
You thought you'd be a thing by then, like a flat, just
I grew up thinking, like, you hit 30 and that's who you are forever. You are like, I am a lawyer. And like, you are your job. You are your marriage. You're
in one of those Richard Scarry books where you're the worm driving the apple cart. Or
oh my God, we have so many references. I love Richard Scarry books. Honestly, I love, like, even to this day, like, my mom has one at her house from when we were kids. I think my sister took it and I fucking love it.
I haven't seen him in a while. I do remember but it's little caricatures of what a person is. And I like going to weddings, but I hate answering the question, what do you do? Because I'm not there yet, like, in terms of, or maybe I can fix that. I can fix answering that question, but it's a difficult question nowadays to answer what it is you do, because if you're not just doing one thing, like, I am a stand-up, I travel the world and I do comedy and that's what I do. I wasn't good at anything else, but I found something I'm kind of good at.
Yeah.
But I like to do a lot of different things and I haven't really broken in any. I'm doing all right. I've got people that like what I do and stuff, but it's a clear definition between breaking and not breaking, that threshold where basically you have more opportunities than you have time. And right now I'm still in the place where I still need to seek out opportunities. I need to mail out stuff. And I think we're all striving to get to that point where all your day is just saying no to stuff. And maybe I'm just very ambitious and I want all the successes, but
I think that's great. And so there's this woman, Lacey Phillips. She calls herself a manifestation advisor.
Ooh.
I heard her on a podcast and I listened to a few other podcasts and I did one of her online sort of courses. And she's really cool because she talks about, like, how, there's all these, like, manifestation theories and books that are basically like, think positive and positive things will come. And that's, like, a little too flat.
People love just shitting on The Secret, but it's what the truth of it is real. Like, thoughts are causative.
Yes. However, there also has to be action. So, like, my old therapist used to call it co-creating with God. I think also, I want to say Julia Cameron it's someone else talks about it too. But there's, like, I've had times in my life where I've been really on the, like, all right, I'm going to do The Secret. I'm going to think positive. I'm going to say positive things. But I'm going to stay home. not going to leave. I'm not going to get on a laptop, but look at me, I'm positive. And nothing happened, right? And then I've also done the opposite where I've been very busy. I've looked very busy. I've written a bunch of things. I've done a bunch of shows, but I'm so fucking negative and angry, right? And that didn't work. So there's like a middle ground where it's like, yes, your thoughts have consequences, but you also have to like do the work and do the action. So there's like a middle ground. And what I really like about Lacey is she's kind of has this more realistic look at how you can't manifest if your self-worth is down.
Yeah.
So like if you say like, I want to start a television show, but you deep down have this like, but I can't, that's not going to happen. But I want it. I'm meditating on it. But you know deep down you don't deserve it or it's impossible. Well, it's not going to happen because that's like a mixed message to the universe.
Yeah, you're blocking it.
Yeah.
In the law of attraction, they call it putting it in your vortex. And the vortex is always like blossoming and there's always motion behind it. So the only way that motion stops is if you're stopping it.
Right.
And you might say like, well, I'm not stopping it. I'm thinking about it. But the mind and the being is a very like iPhone buds tangled sort of wire. I don't know why I have to plug an iPhone. It'd just be any sort of wires tangled. But yeah, you might be just super tangled up in there. But if you untangle it, you could star in that TV show you want today. That email could be waiting for you today.
Yeah.
I think about with the phone, if you want money, there's a combination. I could touch this phone. If I touched it in just the right way, $100,000 could be in my bank account.
Oh, if you play that quiz game that everyone's playing?
No.
Oh.
Not that one, but or that one. Yeah, that one could do it too, but I'm saying like whether it's something you write or draw or you record a song. I'm sure there's #1 songs that have been recorded on an iPhone. I've started to see people like I don't know if Brandon Wardell invented it, but people are doing aux chord DJ sets, so like we're already decades past DJ being like DJs aren't musicians. They're not actually doing it. Now DJs are like the main rock stars.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to say is there's just always opportunities.
Well, one of the things she says that I've passed along to a lot of people because it really resonated with me. Like all that I just said about her. Yes. But one of the things she said is she calls people expanders. And I thought this was so helpful. So you were just saying, like, when people ask what you do, you're like, well, this and this, but because I haven't done this and this, and it's too many different things. And because I love live performing. I love acting. I love writing. I like directing. I also really like vintage shopping. I like interviewing people. I like so many things, right? And for a while, I felt like I had to really focus on one and achieve X, Y, and Z in one. And I need to like tell my reps, like, well, I'm mostly a writer, so let's focus on. And like I thought I couldn't. And then I see someone like Donald Glover, who
I was just about to bring up Donald Glover.
Like, I mean, not only does he do multiple things, he's got like 2 personas. He's like fucking hilarious, but also like so deep. And that's something as a comic that I've always been conflicted with.
He's bridged it. That's a tough thing to bridge.
And I'm like, well, I'm a comic, so everything I say has to be funny. But sometimes, and if I'm do this, then I'm corny. And it's like, I also really like writing poems. And anyways, so this Lacey Phillips calls people expanders that like, because many of us are not raised with like, the world is endless and anything you know, like some of us are, but like a lot of us, you know, our parents did their best. They raised us the way they were raised. And they're like, you grow up, you get a job, you get married, you do this. Yeah. And they're just trying to help us. They didn't know, you know.
And they're right.
Yeah,
but
and
they're also wrong.
Right. But that's what they were told, you know? And so she calls someone like a Donald Glover, you know, she doesn't say him, but I'm saying like he's an expander. Like he has now expanded my mind to know that it's possible to not have to pick one category. Or she also, like, when you're jealous of someone, it's actually because you see in them your own potential.
Yeah.
And so instead
100%.
of being jealous of them, look at them as an expander. They're expanding your mind and your world to know that it's possible. Because that's something that I used to like struggle with. I remember when I was in high school and there would be like the super, like I was like an in-between kid. Like I wasn't a nerd, but I wasn't like super popular, right? I just
middle management.
I was middle management. I was like, what do you guys want me to be? I'll be that, you know, like I could fit in. I was like, whatever, right? And I would like look at the popular kids and I was like, what makes them so special? Why do they think they're so like, I thought it was so unfair. And I made up all these reasons why they were popular. Well, their parents are this, and look, they have great hair and da 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 da. And then
I see people doing that with actresses all the time now, or actors, just all of it.
And then as an adult, I started to realize that I would sometimes do that as an adult, where I'd be like, yeah, well, like that person got a special because like, you know, like their dad's an artist. So they understood about art, and well, you know, they probably didn't like, you know, well, they're an asshole, like all this.
Lena Dunham's parents were brought up in New York, and I was brought up in the middle of the country.
Yeah, and it's like so, but like so basically, like I have to look at them and be like, there's literally no difference between any of us and anyone else. It's just certain people, they work hard. Right place at the right time. They had parents maybe that taught them that, so they learned it a little bit earlier. They went home after the show and wrote the script. They didn't have that fourth glass of wine. They didn't, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is.
It's okay every now and then just to know that boundary.
Yeah, and I'm just saying like there isn't, I don't know, when you take away something that was really significant for me recently was taking away a little bit of that like victimhood.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a victim because I was raised by these working class immigrants that don't understand art. It's like, they fucking paid for your improv classes.
Yeah, I know people that are in the same field as us whose parents have killed themselves.
Yes.
And like, we're complaining at our parents being overbearing or something.
Right. And it's...
one thought I had with the jealousy thing is the person you're jealous of, that person's a part of you, and not in an esoteric way, but the same way that you can't know the me that I know as me. Like I'm a cartoon to you. I'm the cartoon, or even Prince here on the mug. Like I don't know the real Prince.
Right.
I know the Prince that is in my world, and when I die, that goes with my world. Like we have our own world with our cast of characters. So the person that you're jealous of is a you. You see it in the movie theater of your head. We know the story. The light hits your eyes, your brain turns it upside down, and then you're seeing it inside of a you. You're not actually seeing the thing. It's the reality of you. So anyone you love or hate, and there's many people that we hate that we have a lot of work to forgive and be okay with, but it's all part of one thing. If you looked at it from far away, the Earth doesn't look like a bunch of little individual things, or even the galaxy or the supercluster or the universe or the big whatever thing that the whole thing is one thing that's learning to be in. Have you ever gone down that like simulation rabbit hole theory kind of thing? And there's this one guy I like a lot, his name's Tom Campbell, who talks about love is the optimal configuration of any system, and entropy is the not optimal one.
What's entropy?
Entropy is just chaos. Like every data point like has no relation to other data points. It's dissolved, just no information. And then love is every unit seeing the other unit as part of the whole, so it's doing what it can to serve the whole, like be nice to each other. If you see the other thing as part of you, that's love. And if you see it as not part of you, I got to take its resources, that's now mine, then that's fear. So we're kind of in a fear-based society right now, and we're trying to become a love-based society, because that's what your body does. Your body cells are each individual little guys, but they're also working together, and half of you isn't even human cells, it's half bacteria. It's this one big thing that's trying to, or not trying, it is being one thing and serving the whole.
Well, that's what Marianne Williamson talks about, Return to Love, is the whole fear versus love. Like, common sense is love. Like, when you're having common sense, you're like, yeah, of course you don't kill other people. Like, that's fucking, that's love. Like, you're thinking from love. And, like, the whole, it's really interesting, the thing about the movie Outside of Yourself, because I always think that way. Like, I had, just a few nights ago, I was at an event, and there was a lot of comics that I knew from back in the day. And it was really, I don't know why it hit me so hard, but it was funny because there was like certain people that I went up to and I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. And they were like, I don't. And I wasn't mad, but I was like, oh. And I was like, wow, because they were really significant in my story, but I wasn't in theirs. It doesn't mean because I'm a piece of shit. There's just something about my interaction with them that stuck for me.
Yeah.
And then there was people that came up to me and they're like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. And I was like, I don't. And then you're like, oh, that's because something in their storyline, I was a character with this part. And I used to think that was like a hierarchy of like, oh, you think you're too good to know who I am. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually not that. It's just, there's moments I have with people that like, and the coolest thing is when you're both on the same. It's just like, there's like certain people where I've only had like maybe a couple conversations with them and they're like, hey, like the best is when someone's like, hey, do you remember 10 years ago? And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, that's the fucking coolest. But when you don't have that sort of on the same plane moment, it's not because one of you is better or worse than the other. It's because our movies are all so different.
Yeah.
You know? And it's really, and that's another thing too as an artist, and then I should probably get out of here, but I think it's also something really interesting that we often forget if you are in the creative world is like, you sometimes don't know who your art is affecting. Like I will sometimes like, you know, go online and I'll be like, man, this person's like really publicly like jerking off to this other person's art. Like, what about my art? And of course I tend to get like the private messages and I'm like, can you put that DM online? But then you have people come up to you and be like, hey, I saw you perform 10 years ago, or I read this thing you wrote and I shared it with all my friends. And you're like, oh, like you never know. There's people who you've affected and love you and admire you and vice versa that like, we just don't, I don't know. Everyone's.
Oh no, I feel it 100%.
Yeah.
I'm nodding my head in full agreement. And I'm thinking of, I might have said this on just the last podcast. You know that the Gary Shandling episode of Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
My name is, you can see my name on the wall in that episode.
Oh, and yeah, because they go to the comedy store. Yeah, it's at the front, right?
Yeah, it's on the side, and I had like 3 people send me a screenshot, and I was like, "Oh, that's 3." It was 3 people I didn't even think cared.
Immortalized, and she's dead now, so like it's there forever. There can't be a new or maybe there can be a new ruler. But I love what he said about. So Seinfeld is saying this one old comedian guy is dead and he never taped this, you know, a few hours of material, and that material is lost forever. And then Gary Shandling says, like, the material doesn't matter. Like, your material is just basically a tool for your spirit to express itself in this world. And then Seinfeld's like, is that it? And then he goes, yeah. And Gary Shandling says, yeah, that's it. Just to, crap, I'm screwing up the line, but basically, when we get caught up in our material, or when we get caught in indecisiveness of, should I work on the script? Should I work on this song? Should I work on this thing? It doesn't matter which one you pick. That's a trap, thinking which one you have to pick, because the thing you're trying to express is the you-ness that is you. So it doesn't matter who shares it, what your legacy is, how many people liked it. It's you're being a you.
Have you seen the Gary Shandling documentary?
Yeah, the Zen Diarrhea of Gary Shandling.
Do you want to hear how my friend took me to this, like, there's these like sweat lodge things, which I can't believe I actually liked it, but I want to do it again.
Like a meditation house thing?
Kind of. You lay down on a table. I mean, I've only been in LA for like 4 months and I'm already in this thing, but she had a free pass. It's like you lay on this, it's almost like a massage table, but you're on your back and you're wrapped in this sleeping bag that goes up to 70 degrees, 100 degrees. I don't know, but it's made of that material that like wrestlers wear when they're sweating and jogging. Do you know what I mean?
No, I'm not familiar.
It's like the foil, like, so you're laying in it, but you have headphones on. You can watch TV. So I was watching the Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling while I'm in this like expensive sweat lodge, like releasing my toxins. I mean, I felt like I was on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was definitely on like natural drugs.
You watched both parts?
Well, I watched one part at home, but the part I watched in the sweaty sleeping bag. If you can watch basically the point of this podcast is, if you can watch that Gary Shandling documentary in a sweaty 70-degree sleeping bag, you'll be all set for life.
Hell yeah. I talked to Bob Saget about it before watching it. I had to name drop that I don't know Bob Saget. I was just on, back before Nerd Melt closed.
Yeah.
He was on Andy Kindler's
particular
show. It was a night with him, Mark Maron, and Bob Saget. And it was fun just being on the couch watching the way they interact with each other. And he was talking about the documentary, and I'd brought up, like, you know, he's fine. He's off doing like ethereal things right now. And Bob Saget was like, he's dead. I'm like, yeah, but wasn't he all about, spirit and being free and all that, that kind of thing? Like, what would he tell you right now if he was here? And then he's kind of basically telling me like, I already said everything on the documentary. He was very friendly about it and everything, but I guess at that time I wasn't as aware of the opposite side of Gary Shandling, which it goes into, where he's the half, spiritual, but he also had the anger and the neurosis and the everything, which I won't spoil it. Just watch it. It's really good, and you have to get out of here.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. It's been wonderful. People should listen to Hopefully We Don't Break Up podcast once you've listened to every episode of mine and rated and reviewed it and purchased all my product. No, actually, listen to you before you purchase all my products. Find Giulia on Instagram, Twitter, things.
Sure. Yeah, I'm the only Giulia with a G.
Yeah, it'll be spelled out right.
Yeah, so
you'll have your little picture and next to it and everything.
I'm the only one doing comedy with Giulia with a G right now. There is a Giulia with a G that is a Playboy model. I am not her. But thank you.
Not yet.
Yes.
Okay. Well, any last words to leave the listeners with before we delete?
Where most of us are doing our best. Just keep doing your best.
Right
and
on.
Don't hurt other people as you. Hopefully your best doesn't involve hurting people.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully.
All right, we're out of here. Good night, everyone.